All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on a piece of history you probably never heard. We're talking about the year 1922 and how the Panama Canal, yep, that famous waterway, quietly became the master plan for the entire global energy system we live with today. It's a wild story, so let's get into it. So here's the big idea right up front. Back in 1922, the Panama Canal completely changed its job description. It wasn't just a shortcut for ships anymore, no way. It literally became the central nervous system for the entire global oil industry, linking up booming markets like never before. But wait a second. How does a simple canal, basically a giant ditch with water, turn into the powerhouse engine for a massive global industry? Well, the answer is an incredible lesson in logistics, raw strategy, and, you guessed it, power. And we are going to break down exactly how it happened. Okay, first up, a world of disconnected giants. To really get what happened, you have to picture the world in 1922. We're just coming out of the shadow of World War I, right? Industry is absolutely roaring back. And what's fueling this boom? The car. You've got 15 million Ford Model Ts suddenly on the roads, and every single one of them is thirsty for oil. And just look at how lopsided the world's oil production was. It's kind of mind-blowing. The US was the undisputed king, pumping out a massive 472 million barrels. That's 65% of all the oil in the world. Mexico was the up-and-comer, grabbing another 25%. Meanwhile, Russia's oil fields, which used to be huge, were a total mess because of the Bolshevik Revolution. So this wasn't some nice, balanced market. It was a world of giants with a whole lot of chaos. And who was pulling the strings on all this production? The corporate titans, of course. You had the ghost of Standard Oil, which had been broken up but was now a bunch of powerful new companies. Think the ancestors of Exxon, Mobil, and Chevron. And going head-to-head with them was the global challenger, Royal Dutch Shell. They were already eyeing what was left of the Soviet oil fields. So the market was broken into pieces, yeah, but those pieces were incredibly powerful. Next section, the Panama Pivot. So you've got these giant countries and these monster corporations all trying to feed a world that's just desperate for oil. But they had one huge ocean-sized problem. And the solution? Well, it was hiding in plain sight, right in the middle of the Americas. So here was the big headache. Geography was their worst enemy. You see, the places with all the oil, California, the Gulf of Mexico, were thousands and thousands of miles away from the places that needed it most, like the US East Coast, Europe, and Asia. The canal was a great shortcut for sure, but that alone didn't solve the real issue. How do you efficiently connect these two completely separate worlds? Well, not yet, at least. And boom, here's the brilliant solution. The Panama Canal did a total pivot. It stopped being just a hallway for ships to pass through and became a global hub for hitting the pause button. It became the place to store oil, to blend different kinds, to hold it, and then to release it strategically. This whole hub and spoke idea, with Panama sitting right in the middle, was an absolute game changer. It made everything super efficient and gave the people running it an incredible bird's-eye view of the entire global market. And just to give you an idea of the massive scale we're talking about, look at that number, 1.375 million barrels. By 1922, the tanks at the Panama Canal could hold that much oil. To put that in perspective, that's enough to fill more than 200 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This wasn't just a few tanks, it was a gigantic strategic reserve sitting right at the crossroads of the entire world. Okay, let's talk about the hub and spoke revolution, because this wasn't just about moving oil around faster. Oh no, this completely rewrote the rules of power for the whole industry. So let's see who was actually calling the shots at this new global command center. Now this chart is really interesting. Take a look. Who's the biggest player on the block? It's the US government. Through the Panama Canal Corporation, it controlled almost half of all the storage. But right behind them, you can see all the big private companies lining up. West India Oil, Union Oil, all of them fighting for a slice of this incredibly valuable strategic pie. And just to really hammer home how big a deal that 1.3 million barrels was, look at this. Panama's storage capacity wasn't just large, it was completely dominant. We're talking more capacity than the main US hub in Houston and the biggest European hub in Rotterdam combined. It gave them an absolutely massive, unbeatable advantage. You know, when you have an advantage that big, everyone wants a piece of the action. And it created this kind of corporate food chain. You had the giants like the old Standard Oil companies. But check out the slick move by Royal Dutch Shell.
They used another company as a front, a proxy, to get access without having to risk their own money. Super clever. And then you had smaller, specialized companies and other logistics firms. The point is, everybody wanted it.
And what's cool is that they all had different playbooks. This slide shows you the main strategies. You had companies like the Texas company playing the direct control game, just buying up as much as they could. Then you had others focused on pure efficiency, integrating their shipping and their oil storage. And then there's a really interesting one, United Fruit. They got into the oil business simply to protect their main business, which was bananas. 3 totally different game plans, but all revolving around the exact same strategic hub. Okay, this is maybe the most important point of the whole story. The US government was in a completely unique position. Think about it. They were both the referee and the star player in the same game. They made the rules, they set the prices, but they were also the biggest business operating there, owning a huge chunk of the storage. Historians call this a benign monopoly. Basically, the US had total control, got to see every single move made in the global market, and made money from everyone's fees and their own sales. It was the ultimate win-win. So what's the lasting legacy of all this? This benign monopoly, this whole structure, wasn't just a flash in the pan. It actually created the blueprint for how we manage energy and logistics even now, 100 years later. Believe it or not, one of the biggest impacts was that it actually democratized energy. I know that sounds weird, but think about it. Before this hub existed, only the absolute biggest companies, the giants, could handle the insane logistics of shipping oil across the world. The canal basically leveled the playing field. It smashed that geographical monopoly and gave the medium-sized guys a real shot at competing on the world stage. It kicked off genuine global competition. And that brings us right up to today. That hub and spoke model, the one they perfected in Panama way back in 1922, it's the direct ancestor, the blueprint, for all the massive energy hubs that power our world right now. We're talking about places like Rotterdam, Singapore, Cushing, Oklahoma. The entire DNA of modern energy logistics can be traced right back to this one brilliant idea. So, what's the bottom line? It all boils down to this one powerful idea. The story of the Panama Canal in 1922 proves that real control, real power, isn't always about armies and battles. Sometimes it's about controlling the flow. It is the ultimate lesson in soft power. Whoever controls the logistics node controls the entire market. And that is a rule that is just as true today as it was a century ago. Thanks for joining us.